Let's see.
We are live.
Okay, I'm refreshing
Okay.
to see. Oh, we are. Let's see. Hello.
Oh,
Yeah, we are live. I think. Wait.
yes, we are live.
Okay, I'm posting the link. Okay, I'm gonna mute the stream, and I'm going to post it.
Yep, I see it now. Oh, shit. All right, y'all ready to begin, brothers?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much once again for tuning in. I am Josh Samuel, and on the line with me, ladies and gentlemen, our brothers Jordan Ross, an up-and-coming filmmaker, the man who knows the movie like it's his job in a dictionary, and we also had the king of gifts and a person who just delivered an epic video this past weekend, and his name is FRAN. FRAN, man, how you been doing, brother?
I've been doing great.
Good.
Happy kind of. Not really because of the quarantine, but generally happy.
Good. Brother Jordan, man, how you been, dude?
Pretty good. I'm just trying to make the best of this crazy situation.
For sure. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be talking about BVS, the movie, the movie that is highly debated, the movie that is heavily discussed, and we're also going to be talking about some other things related to BVS. Brother Fran, man, I'll start with you. What separates Batman v Superman from all other comic book movies in your opinion?
Well, possibly that it takes itself seriously and it doesn't fail at doing so, because maybe some other comic book movies try to be like so serious and so mature that they just end up being boring. But the difference with BBS is that BBS actually succeeds in that. I mean, let me explain. Like, when all the layers and all the different plots that the movie has, that they are mature plots, they are plots that you have to think and try and reason to see what's going on. Those all pay off in the end. Like, all the plots, all the layers, or the character arcs get fulfilled in the end. Like, for example, about Batman's story, you have to understand, like, from things that the movie is showing you around it, that this is not the Batman you are used to see. This is not your usual Batman. He's damaged. He's starting to kill. You have to understand that he's going forward with his character development, and in the end of the film, with the ending scene when he says, men are still good and all that stuff. That's a fulfilled character arc. Superman, the same thing. At the beginning, he's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just getting criticized. It's a mature and something that makes you think like, oh, this guy is just trying to do the right thing, and now people are treating him like he's some kind of devil, and there's all this politics around him. And in the end, it pays off because he's like, oh, this means something, but it did on my world. And in the end, he says like, this is my world, you are my world, and all that. So what I'm trying to say is that everything pays off. Like, they are mature themes and they pay off in a satisfying way. They are not mature because of the sake of being mature and edgy. They are mature because there's a narrative that accompanies it, and there's a character development and a story development that gets fulfilled and accomplished in every single way.
I got you. I got you. Would you say that it pays to go into this type of film, especially with an open mind and not what I like to call a nostalgia, a nostalgia filled mindset?
Yeah, basically, like if you are going to see this film and you're like, oh, my Batman doesn't kill, and Superman should be smiling and saving cats out of trees. Yeah, of course, you're not gonna like it. But if you are, I'm not going to say intelligent because it doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. But if you are understandable enough to understand that there are different variations of your favorite character, and that you can accept that someone can do different things with your favorite character, you are going to really enjoy it. It's an enjoyable film, even though you are like, oh, my Batman doesn't kill. Yeah, but this one does, and it is explained, and in the end, he doesn't kill because of what happens in the movie. So yeah, if you're going to go see it with the mindset of, oh, my Superman is Christopher Reeve's Superman, you're clearly not going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
but
I agree. Brother Jordan, man, what in your opinion separates Batman v Superman from all other comic book movies, in your opinion, besides takes the source material seriously?
I think to kind of overgeneralize, in this post kind of Avengers MCU world, there's a lot of comic book films that feel very, very similar. And I think I have the feeling, I don't know if this is true, but I kind of feel that the studios believe that they don't have to take comic book material as seriously as the Dark Knight or the X-Men films anymore. So if we wind it back, like 15 years or however long, Batman Begins needed to be way better than Batman and Robin to justify his existence, right? Because like Batman and Robin killed the comic book genre. Same thing with like X-Men and Blade. Those movies needed to be serious. They needed to be good to justify their existence. But after the Avengers and after the MCU, comic book movies don't really need to live up to the standards of the great comic book movies that came before. And that's not to say that all MCU movies are bad or that the MCU in general is like super terrible. But there's just a lot wider variety of comic book films being made, which also means that there's a lot of those films are streamlined and homogenized. So because of that, there's too many comic book films out there that lack a director's personal touch or vision. And Batman v Superman, I mean, that's a comic book film where, for better or for worse, Snyder's voice as a filmmaker is so unapologetically present throughout the entire movie. And because of that, the movie is divisive. Again, for better or for worse, it's people still debate it. Right. In my opinion, I love that. I love the fact that it's still in conversation. I love movies where half the people who watch it love it, half the people hate it. Those are my favorite types of movies. If I look at artists like Alejandro Jodorowsky, Maya Deren, Kenneth Anger, Shane Carruth, these are all filmmakers who are making things that are challenging our notions of what film is, and confronting us with, what can you do in cinema? What can't you do? And pushing those boundaries and having interesting discussions and conversations through film. And I think BVS, well, it's not an art film by any means. I think there's a lot of really intelligent, sophisticated storytelling, visual storytelling they do in that movie that reminds me of great cinematic artists. So I think that's a big thing that separates it from other comic book films.
For sure. Brother Fran, man, I'll go back to you. Would you say that Superman is more of a beacon of hope, or like the movie says, just a guy trying to do the right thing in Batman v Superman?
Well, I think it's a perfect mixture of the two of those ideas. Like, because of the time that we spend with Clark in Man of Steel and in BVS, you can see that he's just like a quote-unquote normal human being, and that he fundamentally is just trying to live up to what his father told him that he was supposed to be, and he's just trying to help in any way that he can. And that's like the guy just trying to do the right thing. But in the other hand, because of his immense power, he's like this Christ figure that everyone loves and everyone is trying to. I mean, not everyone, because there's obviously like a divisive stand on his persona, but because he's so powerful, I can understand why people will be like, this is like the glimmer of hope in my life. Like I've always hoped for someone that could do these amazing things that could help humanity and all that. We go again to the Christian culture of the savior. So he's both. When we as viewers of the film, we empathize more with Clark being the guy just trying to do the right thing. Like that's what we feel. But we can also understand that the people in the universe, the people in the movie, see him as a beacon of hope, because in the universe that's what they are expecting from him, like a superhuman being that can do all this good. So I can understand where the symbol of hope comes, and as viewers we can get it too, like the symbol of hope of saving everyone and in the end saving the world with his life's sacrifice. But I think that it's more easier to empathize with Clark and the guy just trying to do the right thing, because it's what the movie focuses on more.
Yeah, that's really of the many favorite scenes in the movie. The Superman question is probably my favorite sequence in the movie. Not just the music, but the seeing him literally carry the weight of the world on his shoulders in that scene, and just seeing that sequence in Mexico as well. It's just a really, really awesome scene. Jordan Ross, man, what do you think? Do you think Superman is more of a beacon of hope, or just the guy trying to do the right thing in Batman v Superman?
I mean, he's both. I mean, in many different ways, he is the everyday man, right? Like, people say he's too powerful, and you can't, how can you relate to that? But it's a giant metaphor for the everyday man. He has the same problems we do, but just on a massive scale. So, when we screw up, it feels like the whole world is ending. But when Superman screws up, it's like, oh no, the world is like actually ending, or something terribly has gone terribly wrong. So I think that's something we can all empathize with, and that's something we can all relate to. But that doesn't also mean that he isn't a beacon of hope, because he absolutely is. Because in the face of all of that, he still does what's right. He still does what's right. He still tries. He still persists. And I think that's what makes him this figure of hope. And I think the world sees that by the end of the film. That's the whole point of his sacrifice, the funeral, focusing on that funeral for that long at the end. I mean, that's the important part, is to see his impact and how he didn't, regardless of how you felt while he was here, once he was gone, people saw his value, and everybody saw how much hope he inspired. So I think, I mean, I could go either way, but I really think it's a mixture of both. I mean, he's both the everyday man, and he's also a beacon of hope.
Brother Fran, man, I'll start back with you. What was your favorite moment from Zack Snyder's BVS commentary this past weekend?
Well, possibly like the funniest one was the ones that I made like meme gifs of, like when he was like, oh yeah, those guys, they are totally fine. Like they had like fire what's it called, fire protection. So they are completely fine. We didn't shoot the later thing because it was getting late. Like that was so funny because he said it all the time. So that was real funny. And possibly like the best moment that I can recall is like the ending, obviously. Like I posted the video and there's like my scream there. No one has said it, but I was like talking with Jordan and you, and with the ending when he said like, they should make a sequel to this. It will be really fun and this and that. And I almost screamed because I was like, holy shit, he's going to say something, but he didn't. And that was possibly like the best thing. Like obviously there were cool things like the Scream awakens the mother boxes and all that. That was really cool. But the thing that got me hyped the most was like when he said, they should make a sequel to this. I think they formed kind of a leak or something. That was real good.
Yeah. I really just, this is a small moment and people gonna be like, oh, well, if you're a real BVS fan, you would have seen it already. Well, I'm sorry that I haven't. I'm nearsighted. I really like the part where he showed that there was a picture of Thomas Wayne, Jeffrey Dean Morgan in Bruce's office in that scene, and I just really thought it was cool. He was showing us some things he had drawn for the movie itself. That was just really cool to me. Brother Jordan, what was your favorite moment from Zach's BVS commentary this past weekend?
I loved seeing all his storyboards and drawings that he did for the movie. That's kind of like, I love seeing how filmmakers storyboard or prep for their movies, and to it would have been one thing if he had been on the commentary track, right? And we didn't see him and he was just like, oh yeah, for this scene, I drew it like this, I drew it like that. But it's like, no, we could actually see his drawings. I think that's super cool. And then like what Fran said, like I think the three of us, we were watching it together, and at that very ending, like we all screamed. We're like, no, what's he gonna say? Like that was he was just messing with us, but it was still just a great moment to end on. So I would have to say all the storyboards and the very end of it. Also his Barbie collection, that was great. His Barbie collection.
We want to know. Yeah. All right, brothers. We're about to get into some what I like to call butt cheek sensitivity and some controversy. Now, Brother Jordan, man, we were talking about it. And you pointed out something that has been said often, something that has been the topic of many YouTube videos, been the topic of discussion on Twitter, and something that has been thrown around, not just as an idea, but some consider it to be fact. Now, brothers, you are both aware that there was another movie that was set to come out around the same time that Batman v Superman premiered in theaters. And that movie is Avengers 3.5. I mean, Captain America Civil War. And of course, initially, Batman v Superman did have one release date. I think it was like initially May, but they moved it to March. Now, brothers, you and I know that there was rumors that, the plot of BVS, the initial plot of BVS leaked. Many have, thrown stones and, hurled, remarks at Geoff Johns. And, when you put two and two together, I will say this, because I'm not one to point at things without facts. When you put two and two together and you look at a guy who's in a position like Geoff Johns was at the time, it definitely all makes a lot of sense, especially if you look at Civil War and look back at Batman v Superman. The only difference is Civil War just had the pleasure of having the Marvel Studios / Disney logo and getting good reviews. For what reason? That's another video. What brother Jordan, man, I'll start with you and then I'll go to brother Fran. What's your thought on the whole Geoff Johns, Civil War similarities? He leaked BVS because, again, it all makes sense. I think of Topher Grayson's Spider-Man 3, what he did to Peter. It all makes sense. And I know people want to be like, Josh, you need to get Geoff Johns. You need to go in, do it, Pastor. And I'm like, that would be nice, but we need facts. What's your thought on that, man?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's. Listen, let's say someone did leak the plot of BVS to Marvel. At the end of the day, in my opinion, and I think in all three of our opinions, BVS was still the better movie. Like, at the end of the day, like, you know, we got a better movie out of it. We got an awesome movie. And we got a similar movie, which does have some cool stuff in it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect, the three of us that much because, they didn't. I mean, who cares that Captain America did some similar stuff? Who cares that there were similar moments or plot events in each movie? Doesn't matter because when we saw BVS, that blew us away. When we saw Civil War, it didn't. So it's like, I mean, I think that's more of a. I think it's more of a personal taste, personally. Like because when I saw Civil War, I was like, oh man, like BVS was so much better. Like I preferred the DC Snyder take on this story so much more. But then there's people who saw BVS and were like, what? This is garbage. And then they were like, oh, but Civil War, that's my jam. That's my stuff right there. So I think it comes down to personal taste. And it almost reminds me of that TV show, what's it called? Project Greenlight, I think, where or I can't remember the exact name. There was a show where you get two filmmakers to make the same script. And the results were pretty vastly different. And I feel like it's the same thing with BVS and Civil War. It's just a matter of, do you prefer the Russo brothers Marvel style or the Snyder DC style? And at the end of the day, I mean, we all prefer, us three, we prefer the Snyder BVS style, and we got a better movie out of that. Yeah. So it doesn't matter to me, who leaked it or how it leaked. I think it was a cool, regardless, we got two similar movies, and I guess it just reaffirms our love for this style of filmmaking with this kind of personal director's touch on it.
Damn. Brother Fran, what's your thought on the BVS Civil War similarities, the rumors and the accusations that Geoff Johns wanted to get a higher position in DC movies, and he purposely leaked BVS?
Well, I must say that I agree 100% with everything that Jordan said. And listen, in the video that I've made, I take a little jab at Geoff Johns because of things that I know are 99.9 true. That's what I said, the things that I said in the video, and they are just like two things. So I don't know if he leaked the script. I don't know who did it. I don't know if that's true. So I'm not going to start pointing fingers at anyone if I don't really know what happened. So thing is, even if it got leaked and they had to change things so it wasn't as obvious as they were saying it was going to be, like Jordan said, we still got a superior movie than what they were trying to copy from DC. And I must say something that people tend to forget or not really think about it. The DCU only had one film that was Man of Steel that had started to divide people, let's say. It was generally acclaimed, but there were a lot of people that were like, oh, maybe this tone, this and that, whatever. Marvel had done like till 2013, they had already done the Avengers. Like they were the big deal in superhero movies. And they had to copy the second statement of the DCU out of fear. So just imagine, like, I don't know whatever the future could have been, but just imagine the power and influence that the DCU could have had if they had stuck to Snyder's vision, because Marvel had made like $1.4 billion with the Avengers, and they were scared. of the DCU. They were scared because it is like, this is factually true. I've seen an article saying that Marvel knew that DC was making BVS, so they decided to change Captain America. Was it so Secret Society or something like that?
Serpent Society.
Serpent Society.
Yeah.
And they tried to make it as similar as BVS as possible. So just imagine if they had left Zack alone. I mean, at the end of the day, we got the superior movie, but just imagine if they had left the single director that was back on in the train in 2016 do their own thing. Marvel was starting to get scared. If you are not scared of competition, you are doing your own thing. If you are scared of getting surpassed by competition, you start copying them, and that's what they started to do.
Say that last part again, friend.
If you are not scared of competition and you just made $1.4 billion in a movie, you are not going to copy your supposedly biggest competitor. But if you are scared of what the other person or the other studio is trying to make, and maybe they are going to be more successful than you are, you have to copy them. Copy them, make a more family-friendly plot, let's say, of what the idea that they're trying to have, and you are going to say like, oh, this is my superior movie because everyone loves it. Yeah, everyone loves it because it's like a family movie. It doesn't make you think. The themes are really, you can really sell that kind of movie.
Yeah, for sure. But moving on, brothers. Brother Fran, I'll start with you, man. Now we all saw Joss Whedon's Justice League in November 2017. At the time, personally, I will admit I didn't know the interference was as severe as it is. I was disturbed immediately with that opening sequence with Superman's face. And the thing that bothers me the most is I will see so many people defend Joss Whedon and say, he didn't have time. He was just doing what he got paid to do. And that's true. But something you said a long time ago, friend, and I'll never forget it. You said, while that may be true, there is a respectful way you go about doing something in that situation. This situation being taken over the reins from another filmmaker. You can make a film and still be respectful to the person that was originally making the film. We saw something similar with Solo, a Star Wars story. Shout out to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And it's just crazy to see how far the Snyder Cut movement and the cries and the endless tweets or the endless articles for the Snyder Cut. It's crazy to see how long this movement has lasted, how big it's become, and how many people are literally itching to see Zack Snyder's Justice League. Man, what's your thought on the Snyder Cut movement right now, especially, bro?
Well, I think that right now we are just like patiently awaiting an announcement. Like this is in the phase that we are in. We went through so many phases.
Yeah.
Like total discouragement to total hype to total standby. So I think like right now we're just not. I mean, I don't think that the movie is going to come out this year because of the work that is needed to finish for it to be finished. But I think that announcement is 100% coming this year. I don't know when. Obviously, I don't have any inside sources at Warner Brothers. I wish, but I'm 100% sure that there's going to be some kind of announcement this year, and that's what the movement should be doing. Like, let's encourage the film. Let's show love for Zack's movies. Let's show love for the cast who've openly talked about releasing the Snyder Cut. That's great. What we are doing with all these events are great. It's great, and we should just be patiently waiting. I think that all the hard work is already done. Like all the big heavy lifting was done in November 17, and I think that we won basically because of the things that have come out after November 17th and how things are shaping to be. So I'm pretty confident that we as a movement should just stay not necessarily stay low, but stay patient, keep doing these events, keep celebrating Zack's movies, keep asking for the cut, obviously, but all the infighting, all the differences that we may have had in the past, we should leave it in the past, because right now it's the moment of being patient, wait for the announcement, and say that we finally won, basically.
I completely agree. Brother Jordan, man, what's your thought on the Snyder Cut movement? How far it's come and everything, man.
I totally agree with what Fran said. All the heavy lifting is done. I mean, we've applied the pressure. I think what we got to do is maintain that and keep the Snyder Cut in the kind of public conversation. But I agree with Fran. I think the deal is done. I think they are going to make an announcement this year, hopefully. I mean, I think an announcement is going to be coming in the next year or so. And I think that's really reassuring, because I think about this time a year ago, the fandom was in a much different place. If I remember, like a year ago, I remember I was feeling super discouraged. I was feeling kind of like super bummed out with all the comic book stuff, super bummed out just about the state of the Snyder Cut. This wasn't why, but I remember going to see Shazam and being like, oh, is Henry going to be in it? Is Henry going to be in it? And then he wasn't in it. And I was kind of bummed. And that's nothing on David Sandberg. It's a great film. I love that ending. But that, it's just another reminder, like, oh, Henry might be out of Superman. All plans for the DC are just totally gone or fizzled out. But now we have a hope and a high likely chance of the Snyder Cut coming out. And there's even a tiny, tiny chance that maybe Snyder would come back to do another movie. Like, come on, that's awesome. Like, we're in a great place. We've come a long way from where we were, even a year ago, let alone, November 17th, 2017. So I think, we just got to keep going, apply the pressure, keep doing these little mini events like the Ray Fisher stuff yesterday. And I think we're good. I think it's coming.
Facts. All right, brothers. I'm gonna pause right here and read some of the comments in the chat. Let's see. Brother Lewis, shout out to him. Thank you for tuning in, dude. It's so sad to imagine what the DCU could have been if Zack had been left alone, as Fran has said. Absolutely, man. Knowing the plans that Zack had for even beyond Justice League is just mind-blowing, and knowing what he did with BVS and Man of Steel, we can only imagine. And even once we get the Snyder Cut, we can only imagine what the other Justice League movies would have been like. So we will wait for the Snyder Cut, and hopefully there's a push for hashtag bring back Zack, and he can team again with Henry on another Superman movie, because I mean, I stand here today and I will continue to say that I just love their work on Superman. There's nothing like it. Sam Martin, shout out to him. Lewis, again, shout out to you. W. Mir says, Keelar liking the hashtag release the Snyder Cut tweets is a dead giveaway. I think he was referring to, and Fran and Jordan, y'all have to help me out. He was referring to one of the CEOs liking the hashtag release the Snyder Cut tweet or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The new CEO of Warner Media.
Okay. And then yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Y'all make sure y'all follow Fran on YouTube and Twitter. Follow Jordan Ross on Twitter, and be sure to like the video. Brother Lewis also typed, yeah, it would be a dream come true to get the other two Justice League movies with Snyder at the helm, but one dream at a time. Hey man, I agree, but we're gonna keep pushing for Zack to come back and finish his trilogy, because we need that trilogy. Moving on, brothers. Brother Jordan, I'll start with you, man. Ben Affleck's movie The Way Back recently came out. It was a really good movie. Shout out to Gavin O'Connor, who tragically will not get to do Suicide Squad. Instead, we ended up with Jimmy Gunn. But I want to talk about him as Batman. We love him as Batman. He's an excellent Batman, and I just want to give you time to kind of reflect on Ben Affleck as Batman. And yeah, the mic is yours, man.
Man, gosh, it's such a big question. Listen, I think what a lot of us in the fandom connected to with Ben Affleck as Batman it was just something that we had never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a story that couldn't have been told if Zach had kind of portrayed a more quote unquote canonical version of Batman, right? Because in the canon, he doesn't kill, doesn't use guns, he's noble, he's righteous, he has a moral compass. So portraying him having lost that moral compass is just something that, you just couldn't do. And I think these days there's certain parts of the kind of comic book fandom that get a little bit greedy and a little bit selfish, and they're like, no, it has to be like this version. It has to be canon. It has to be comic accurate.
Right.
So, and listen, maybe you don't like Batman killing or his arc in BVS. That's fine. That's all good and everything. But for the people who do like it, we liked it because it was something new that we hadn't seen before. It was something compelling. Heroes don't start out, on the moral high ground all the time and just stay there for their entire career. It goes up, it goes down. There's twists and turns along the journey. Mm-hmm. And if Batman had just always, it would make no sense for Batman to fight Superman if he was, always had a clear mind, if he always had a clear head. I think showing that the trauma of his childhood, the trauma of Metropolis being destroyed, showing that, showing that toll that it takes on Batman and his state of mind, it's really powerful stuff that they got going on in the movie. And I think, a lot of that is due to the direction, and a lot of that's Ben Affleck's performance, because he's a comic book guy, he's a fan of the character, and he played it like no one else had done before. You see that untethered rage in his eyes. You see his eyes, his eyes just kind of narrow down and focus. There's fury and rage in his eyes. He's trembling when he looks at the Batman suit. He's not fueled by this desire to do justice or good. He is fueled by just his hatred and fear. And that's something that, again, either you like or you don't like. That's up to you. But for people in the fandom, I like seeing that different version of Batman. I like the kind of deconstruction of that character in his world. And I think that's why it really spoke to us as characters. And that's why, when we saw Ben Affleck in Justice League, it was like, wait a minute, this is not the same. This is like cartoony children stuff. Like, this is not the Batman we saw in BVS. And that's why, we want to see the rest of his arc. And that's why seeing the original cut of Justice League is so important to us, just because that version of the character is so important. Yeah. What about you? What do you think about the whole Ben Affleck as Batman?
I love it, man. Obviously, the big thing for me is the warehouse sequence in towards the end of the movie. Is so the fighting style for Batman and the fight sequences for Batman are just so much more better in BVS than they are in the Nolan trilogy. And that's not a knock at all at the Nolan trilogy. I love all of those movies in their own right, but the fighting for Batman for me is the biggest thing. And then too, just having a much older, more experienced Bruce Wayne, who's lost a lot, not just his family, but has also lost a Robin as well. And I think Zach said it was actually going to be Dick Grayson, even though most people were saying it was Jason Todd. And yeah, just seeing him, go out and do all this crazy stuff determined to get Superman by any means necessary. It was, like you said, Jordan, it's different, and it's not something we've seen in prior Batman movies. And Ben Affleck, he just gave one hell of a performance. And again, like you said, this is why we want to see the Snyder cut. I don't want Ben Affleck's last performance as Batman to be itchy and, I think something's broken and I don't not like you. We don't want that. We want to see the Snyder cut. We want to see Batman squaring off against parademons and shit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, always, always, always would love Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman. And to me, he will always be the definitive Batman. No disrespect to Robert Pattinson, he's a talented actor, but to me, Ben Affleck is the Batman. And with that being said, Fran, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with almost everything that you guys had just said. Like, I wasn't like when first Ben Affleck was cast as Batman. I remember being like at a shopping center or something like that in 2014, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember seeing it, and I was like, "What?" Like, I got so angry because I was like a big fan of the Nolan trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "They're going to cast this guy as Batman? Like, what do you mean?" And then I remember watching the movie in theaters, and I just like at first I didn't really enjoy it. Like, it was fine, and then I saw the Ultimate Edition, and I really enjoyed it. But what really stuck out with me was how good Batman was in that movie. Like, the way that he portrayed Bruce Wayne and the way he portrayed Batman was like so good, because he was playing the typical playboy, guy that doesn't care about anything. But if you really pay attention to his performance, you can see that there's sometimes that he slips out. Like, some of the Batman inside him like comes out. The way he looks at people, the way he interacts, his facial expressions. Like, for example, when Clark Kent is saying, like, I've seen it. He's above the law, Mr. Wayne, and this and that. He puts that face.
Yeah.
Like, the inner Batman is like trying to come out and saying, "I'm gonna punch this guy in the face," but I can't because I will break my arm. But that subtlety of, for example, when he talks to Diana in the museum, where he's confronting her, and the way he talks to her, the way he grabs her, the way he's like staring at her before the scene, and you can see him reflected in the mirror of the sword. Those things that are little details add so much to the general story and what the movie is trying to tell you. So that, combined with the amazing action pieces that Batman has in BVS, makes it the definitive Batman, in my opinion. Like, the overall Bruce Wayne, the overall character arc that he goes through, like the final words. Like, I cannot believe that people say that BVS is not an inspiring movie, that it's a boring movie because everyone is so sad. Oh, edgy Superman. Like, yo, have you seen the ending?
Preach.
Like, Bruce Wayne literally says, like, men are still good. We fight one another, but we have to rebuild. We have to, like, it's like the most inspiring and positive thing that came out of that movie. And that was in the theatrical cut, because I remember. So I don't know where you see like this edgy film when the ending is the most inspiring thing that I've seen in a superhero movie in years.
Right.
And like you said, I don't want Ben Affleck's last performance as Batman as to be as laughable as Clooney's, because that it is like his performance in Justice League is as bad as the one that Clooney had in his movie. Like what you say, with some things definitely bleeding, and I don't like you.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Like, you come from you're not brave, men are brave, or my parents taught me a whole different lesson, dying in the gutter for no reason at all. Like, that is like so great dialogue. And then you go in the next film, and he's like the worst laughable joke of the film.
Yeah.
it's so bad that you wanna cry instead of laugh.
Yeah.
Like where we come from and what is this shit? So like yeah, like you said, I just want his final performance as him, and I want something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. I want to see how Clark and he interact in the movie, like because the fight in Heroes Park when he's like, "You won't let me live, you won't let me die." That's obviously a reshoot. So I want to know if Batman is really in there, if they interact, how they interact in the final battle. Like instead of Batman like smiling like a kid when he sees Superman, I want to see what's his first interaction with him, because his sacrifice changed his whole point of view of life. So I want to see how they interact with each other. That's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Facts. Brother Jordan, man, I remember a video we did, man. You really went in. You said you said something along the lines of watching Justice League felt like they just hired Joss Whedon and said, "Hey, you want to come tell some joke? You want to make a movie with some jokes?" So I really, needless to say, we really need the Snyder cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League. We're gonna pause really quick. They're going crazy in the chat. Guys, thank you all so much once again for tuning in. Again, please follow Brother Jordan Ross on Twitter and follow the Gift King and soon to be YouTube King, Brother FRAN, on both YouTube and Twitter as well. Brother Lewis says, "Yeah, Jordan, that's what made those characters so compelling, nuanced, and enjoyable to see. Emotional roller coaster instead of funny, family friendly prefabricated products out of a production chain." Yeah, for sure. Sorry if I butcher this, Lealu. I think one problem a lot of people had with Zack's movies is that they feel the characters are too quote unquote human. I feel they saw a lot of things they hate about themselves in this interpretation. Brother Fran, man, what's your thought on that comment, bro? Before we move along. Oh,
Hello.
yeah. What's your thought on brother or sister Lalu's comment? I think one problem a lot of people had with Zack's movies is that they feel the characters are too quote unquote human. I feel they saw a lot of things they hate about themselves in this interpretation.
Yeah, that's true. And if you think, I think that I cut out earlier. I don't know if something like that happened. Like, I think that that's true because they've always said that DCU, like the DCU, elevated their heroes so much that they were like gods, so people wouldn't really like connect with them. So it's like, okay, I guess. But I think that it's also true that because of what we see that we as a society are capable of. Because if you think about it, in BVS, all the criticism that Clark is getting, it's us. Like it's not like 100% us because it's a movie, but it's us. Our way of thinking, our way of getting manipulated because of the news and because of the TV, and that's true. I think that because in the movie they show the power that society has and how without knowing someone we can get to hate him so much. People can can get kind of angry. I don't think that's like a definitive factor on why people don't like his movies, but I understand that feeling because it's true. Like it the media in BVS is like a whole new character in the film. Like the media shows up all the time in the movie. Why? To show you that people can get easily manipulated and how society at the end almost everyone hates Superman because of what the media is trying to say. Like the lady when the Capitol explodes, like she says, Superman was trying to help people out of the building, but we are still suspecting that he was a part of the plan or something like that. So they are all the time trying to make enemies I don't know if that's understandable, but I kind of agree with that comment. Like, I can see why people might get angry of, oh, I wouldn't do that. Like, that's not me. Like, that's the other guy, and that's not me. And you're doing that like right now. The things that you hate, the things that you love, maybe some of them are influenced because of the media, and you don't really even know it. You may hate this political party, or you may hate this director, you may hate this brand of clothes, and you don't really know why, because you are inducted by the media to hate it. So yeah, I kind of agree with that comment.
Yeah. Okay. Sam Martin says they cope with escaping reality. We cope with facing it. Sam Martin says they cope with escaping reality. We cope with facing it. That's an interesting statement, brother Jordan. Man, I've always said that you know a large portion of the going audience seems to prefer what I like to consider escapism, as opposed to what we tend to prefer, realism in superhero movies. Would you agree or disagree?
I think the success of the Marvel movies proves that. Like, I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with escapism.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with realism. Nothing wrong with it. There's no right or wrong way to make a comic book movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a great point that Sam brings up. I think a lot of the people prefer that escapism right now. I mean, look at Civil War. Look at the MCU. They make huge moments about comic book iconography, right? So you get moments like in the first Avengers, there's that rotating shot around all the team members, right? In Age of Ultron, there's that opening shot of them going through the woods, and then it has that wide shot of all the Avengers charging together. And in Civil War, we have all these heroes fighting each other. But these moments aren't really, they're almost always about spectacle, regardless of the context of the story. So that moment in Civil War, that's a story of heroes fighting each other. There's betrayal, there's hurt. A big part of that whole story is about collateral damage. Yet we have our superheroes cracking jokes while they destroy an airport. The music is heroic. There's very little stakes in that scene. So I'm curious as to why did the filmmakers want me to cheer for the heroes fighting each other as much as I cheered when they teamed up to fight aliens in the first Avengers? There's something tone deaf about that situation. And I think philosophically, Snyder would have a problem with that. Well, again, that's not necessarily an issue if you're just kind of ignoring the real life implications of superheroes and all that stuff. But it is interesting to see the approach. Whereas, it's ugly when Batman fights Superman in BVS. We aren't enjoying him, torturing Superman. We're not enjoying it. But in Civil War, we're supposed to cheer and get our blood pumping and be like, oh, yes, this is cool. This is awesome. These heroes fighting each other. And I think, again, that's just a great point. I think people like escapism and people need escapism. And I'm not saying that's bad or a bad thing or anything like that. But I think it's very clear in the approach of BVS and Civil War. If you look at how those movies tackle collateral damage and the tone and the seriousness of the story, I think it's very clear that they are at odds with each other. And whichever film you prefer is just going to come down to your personal philosophy on the matter. So yeah, great point, Sam. That's awesome.
Damn. Brother Lewis says it's quite possible, Leolu, but making these guys more human, bringing them closer and more relatable as well. I completely agree. Lewis also goes on to say Ben Affleck was such a gift as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Love you guys. Yeah, man, I completely agree. He will always be, as I said earlier, the definitive Batman in my eyes. Again, no disrespect to Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson is a brilliant actor. I love a lot of Robert Pattinson's movies. But when I think about, again, what Ben Affleck wanted for his Batman movie, it's just a crying shame. And in an ideal world where we have Joker spinoff with Joaquin Phoenix and a supposed DC Black label, it would be really cool if they could somehow convince Ben to come back and do his Batman movie. Because I'm like, if we can have two Jokers, why can't we have, even though we don't know the status of Jared Leto, but we'll just say he's still in, hypothetically. If we can have two Jokers, why can't we have two Batman? You know what I'm saying? But that's another topic for another day. Leolu says, Lewis, that's exactly right. I related to all their ranges of emotion. I could understand the why, the quote unquote why behind the things they did. I'm just so pained that I was robbed of Zach's Justice League. We all are, brother Leolu, brother or sister. Lewis says, yeah, Batman and Justice League is a joke to him as a performer and to us, the fans, absolutely. Sam Martin goes on to say, I want to see the Suits Alfred scene. Lewis says, we were all robbed, and it showed with the box office and the consequences afterwards. Lots of people got kicked out after that debacle. Yeah. Lewis says, I couldn't agree with you more, Jordan. Leolu says, Fran and Josh Shem, y'all understand what I'm talking about. Appreciate it. Sam Martin says, yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And we got two more segments, and then we're gonna close the broadcast for today. Thank you all so much once again for tuning in. Again, follow Brother Jordan Ross on Twitter and follow Brother Fran on YouTube and Twitter, man. Brother Fran, man, I'll start with you. Yesterday was a difficult day for myself. Not only was the New Mutants supposed to release, but once again got tragically delayed due to the very untimely and very unforeseen pandemic in the coronavirus. A movie by the name of Cyborg was also supposed to release, which would have starred the very talented, the very humble, and the very gifted Ray Fisher. Now Ray Fisher Cyborg, we did see part of his character in Justice League, but we did not see the entire storyline, nor did we see his storyline as it was intended to be seen in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, I want to give you the time to kind of discuss Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher is a great guy. His loyalty, as I said yesterday, his loyalty and fearlessness is contagious to a fault. And I couldn't be happier to call him Cyborg. He is the Victor Stone that the DC movie world needs. And with that said, Fran, I'll start with you, man.
Well, I mean, it was quite sad, basically because of the rising star that Ray is. Like, Justice League was supposed to be like his bridge
right
into Hollywood.
Right.
And the way the movie shaped out, even though the critics were like, the best part of the film is Cyborg, like Ray Fisher is really good in it. But I think that it's a really big injustice because of a lot of reasons, but basically because he's a really good actor. Like, I haven't seen him in a lot of things, obviously, but what we saw in Justice League and from the scenes, the Vero images that Snyder is showing, you can see the emotion and the weight and the performance he's transmitting. Like, I think that the day we will see the Snyder Cut with what, in terms of acting, I think that the one that we are going to love the most is Ray Fisher's Cyborg. Because, like Zach said, he's the heart of the film, and he's like the plot that carries, like he's the character that carries the plot of the movie because of his father and the mother boxes and his knowledge and all that. So it is a big injustice because I don't think that it's that difficult to make a Cyborg film.
Right.
Like, I'm not that into Cyborg villains, for example, but you can get Flash in that movie, and now you are connecting two characters from different movies, and you are expanding the universe. And you can also touch on the themes of him being like almost a machine and how that affects him and his psyche and his way of living. And like, there's so many things that you can explore with a character like Cyborg, and they just chose not to because it was from the original slate. Like, I don't see a reasonable thing on why they didn't do this movie, because there was potential for it. There was the potential of representation, obviously, like a black male lead character,
Right.
and there was the potential of, for example, disabled people, like, because he's like a disabled superhero, so that was great also. And I don't know, I also I just can't understand why they didn't do it. They had a really talented main lead character, actor, sorry. They had the possibility of introducing new characters in the film, like Flash, because they have a really good chemistry in the comics too. So everything was on its favor, and it didn't get to be done. And I don't understand why anyone at Warner Brothers is questioning it, because there's money to be made there. So I can't understand their way of thinking, really.
Yeah, I can't either. I think my end froze a little bit, so sorry to everybody listening if I was saying some stuff that didn't make sense. But yeah, man, we again hope for the best. I definitely, beyond the Snyder cut of Justice League, would like to see Ray Fisher continue to play Cyborg in the DC movie world. And I know Zach, I think either Ray or Zach both said that Cyborg was going to be the strongest metahuman eventually in future movies. So I just always thought that would be really cool. And again, I wish Ray Fisher well, and we hope to see him in the foreseeable future beyond Zack Snyder's Justice League. Brother Jordan, man, talk to us a little bit about Ray Fisher and Cyborg, man.
Well, I think a little piece of hope that we can hang on to is when there was the Crisis on Infinite Earths event on the Flash TV show. Apparently, that was all orchestrated by Jim Lee and Warner Brothers or DC. It wasn't the TV people who filmed the cameo. It was the movie people who reached out to the TV people. Mm-hmm. And in the dialogue, the Flash specifically says, Victor always said this was possible, or something along those lines. He mentions Victor. Mm-hmm. So I think it's pretty likely that in the Flash film, we might get to see Cyborg, or we'll see other heroes. And I think it's reassuring to know that, he could have said anybody's name there. He could have said Diana. He could have said Bruce. He could have even just said, "Oh, I always knew this was possible," or "I wondered if this was possible." But they specifically mentioned Cyborg, and I think that was done for a reason. So that's reassuring. With Cyborg, what you have is, I mean, the whole concept of a cyborg is that's kind of, DC's thing. Is to be a bridge. Our heroes are Justice League. They're all bridges between two worlds. Superman, mm-hmm. Krypton and Earth, Diana, mm-hmm. the Amazons and man's world, Aquaman, Atlantis, and the surface dwellers, right? And Cyborg is, the ultimate bridge between technology and the organic, the human in all of us. And I think there's a lot of potential with that character to do it properly on screen. And, if you just watch Ray Fisher, if you read any interview, watch any interview, he's clearly passionate about the role. He clearly loves the character. He's dedicated. And you get glimmers of that. You see little moments of that in the theatrical Justice League where, his performance comes through. And it's just a shame that they cut it out so much, especially because that character means so much to so many people. I know, particularly to younger people, like, mm-hmm. I grew up watching like the Justice League show and everything, but the show that I loved was Teen Titans. Right. And like, who doesn't love Teen Titans? And Cyborg is a huge part of that. And to see that Victor mm-hmm. on screen, like, yeah, sign me up. I'm in. I want to see that. I think that Cartoon Network show, the Teen Titans show, that meant a lot to a lot of people around our age, in particular, who grew up watching that. And it's just a bummer that his role in Justice League was totally cut out and totally mutilated and he was totally sidelined in what was supposed to be his show. Mm-hmm. and that's just a shame. And again, we do have. I think there's still hope that he will appear as Cyborg again. I mean, he will for sure in the Snyder cut, and I think it's likely that he'll pop up in the Flash movie. But we just got to be patient. We got to wait and just show Ray our love and show Warner Brothers how much we love that character.
I agree. Well, brother Fran, brother Jordan, I thank y'all as always for stopping by and collaborating with me on this very, 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 very fun live stream. We have reached the final part of the video, and you all know what part of the video this is. I wanted to take the time for all three of us to talk about why BVS means so much to us. We could if we both all had our cameras on, we could play paper, rock, scissors as to who would go first. But since y'all are the my brothers and guests, I will let either one of y'all go first, and then I'll go follow as well.
But I think that Jordan may have more things to say than I do. So
if you want to hear me ramble for a long time, I can go. But like, if you want to save that till later, Frank can go.
It's your choice, Josh.
Okay, Fran, you go first, bro.
All right. I was gonna say flip a coin or something, but it's all right. I mean, listen, I watched, like I said many times, I watched the theatrical cut,
mm-hmm.
and I was one of those guys. Okay, I'm sorry, I have a dirty past. When I saw Batman killing the Batmobile, I leaned over to my brother and I said, "Why is Batman killing?" I swear to God that happened in the cinema, and I'm one of the guys who doesn't talk. Like, I don't talk anything throughout the movie. And I leaned over to my brother and was like, "Why is he killing? Like, that's not Batman." Yeah, I was one of those guys. Sorry. And and then on summer 2016, which happens to be like the best summer ever for everyone, it was for me at least, I watched the Ultimate Cut and I found it amazing.
Right.
Like, I saw it and I was like, this is incredible. Like, at that time, I wasn't so much into the meanings and the character arcs and all that, but as a film, like as a spectacle, I watched it, and when I saw the final battle, I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is so epic. I love this. I love the score. I love this. I love that. And I started to get, I fell in love with the movie. And I saw it quite a few times, and then I saw Justice League trailer 1, and I loved it. And then I saw Justice League and whatever happened. But BVS means a lot to me, not only because of the movie and that I love it and the score is amazing and the fight scenes and the everything about it, in my opinion, again, is amazing, but it opened up so many doors for me in terms of superhero movies. For example, like before BVS, I was like a fan of the Nolan trilogy, and that was it. Like, I wasn't that much into superhero movies. Then I saw the Ultimate Cut of BVS and I started following superhero news sites on Instagram. I created a Twitter account on August 2017, but I had a previous one where I started to follow these kind of things again. Mm-hmm. So that movie means a lot to me because not only the movie, but the people that I've gotten to know because of it. Like you guys, for example. If I wasn't a big fan of that movie, I wouldn't have met you guys like in my life,
right?
Because there's like no chance that we would have talked because of Yes. And I've met so many amazing people from the, for example, Release the Snyder Cut movement, and I've become friends like you guys with. So it's not just the movie; it's the doors that it opened for me. Like, yeah, like the movie itself is really good, and then I became a big fan of Zack Snyder, and I've had, the possibility of watching talk about the movie online at the same time that I'm watching it. So that was amazing. I'm rambling here, but like the final thoughts, it's that I love the movie, and the movie has done so much for me that only makes me love the movie and the director even more, basically.
I completely agree. Brother Jordan, I will pass the mic to you, and then I'll close us out.
All right, brace yourselves here. Well, you sent me the message. You were like, "What do you love about BVS?" And there's so many things. It's such a loaded question.
Mhm.
I think first up, what I love is the series take of the characters of Batman and Superman. That's something I really connect to in the film. Um, it probably would have been easier for Zach to make a more straightforward, more kind of streamlined, world's finest type movie. And it probably would have done better critically and financially. But I really admire his choice to make the first team up of those characters a deconstruction of those characters
Mhm.
and the superhero genre by extension. A
Mhm.
deconstruction, I mean, I think us in the movement, we use that word a lot, but just kind of, if you don't know what that means, it's like, you're taking a criticism of a fictional element by presenting it in reality and showing its consequences that are usually overlooked.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a ballsy thing to do in a first team up movie. In the movie, he's deconstructing lots of things. One is damage, right? The damage in superhero films. Conflict in superhero movies used to be just like, hey, gotta save the girl, stop the villain from making an earthquake or saving a tram car full of people, right? But now it's all about minimizing damage. And so at the Avengers end climax scene, they're destroying city blocks. And so does Man of Steel to like a greater extent. But then BVS flips that and puts those kind of climaxes in a new perspective. It takes, these city destroying fights and makes it reminiscent of the 9/11 footage, right?
Right.
There's men trapped beneath building wreckage. There's children wandering the streets without their parents. There's horses, symbols of death. They're running through fog-covered streets, and we see suffering. And when superheroes save the day, it's not without a cost. So after you go from that, it's so hard for me to go back to the Avengers and watch that and cheer for the heroes while I'm thinking about how all those buildings are being destroyed and inevitably there's people being killed off screen. It's hard to rewatch Man of Steel after that almost, because they really commit to the realism.
Mhm.
Because if aliens existed and they came to our city, the damage would be so catastrophic and people would die.
Mhm.
And some people, disagree with that portrayal philosophically about collateral damage. But I think in the commentary for BVS, Snyder said he kind of disagrees with blowing up buildings and all that stuff for spectacle, just kind of, inherently. But that's kind of, and you see that in BVS because that's how we are supposed to feel. The damage in BVS should make you feel uncomfortable. You should
Right.
feel the impact of those who died because that's
Right.
exactly how Bruce Wayne feels. That's the driving motivation for his hatred of Superman. So when he holds the orphan girl in the wreckage of Metropolis looking up at Superman, that's him looking up at Joe Chill, the man who killed his parents. So that's why those two things are juxtaposed at the very beginning of the movie. Those are his motivations: fear and hate. Fear of what happened to him as a child, hatred of Joe Chill, fear of Superman's potential for evil, and the hatred of what Superman has done. So we as an audience, we're more used to seeing him, as we said, a reserved Batman on the screen, right?
Mhm.
Kind of the cool, suave Christian Bale, or the collected kind of Michael Keaton, right? He might be strange or mysterious, but he's always noble. But BVS takes that notion of Batman and asks us, what would Batman really be like if he existed for 20 years in Gotham? And the answer is he would be reckless. He'd be angry. He'd be lost. He'd have no moral compass. He would just be, on a self-destructive path. And as Alfred says, it used to be one way, but everything's changed. And that Bat brand is a motif that we see in the movie to portray his cruelty. That's why at the end he doesn't brand Luthor, because he's found his way again. And it takes the whole kind of mechanically, Batman, no killing, no guns rule, and it deconstructs that even. I mean, I think everybody remembers that from the Dark Knight trilogy. He says no guns, no killing. But in BVS, he uses guns. And lots of criminals who engage with Batfleck, they don't walk away from that. You're not getting up and walking that off. So it's asking us on another level, how realistic is that no killing rule?
Mhm.
And it's looking at, again, collateral damage, the human life and what that, going into combat, what that actually, the toll that actually takes on the person. And then again, narratively, he's breaking that rule, but it's acknowledged by Alfred to show that he's lost his way, and he's so driven by hate and fear that he has no regard for human life. And he's telling himself that he's the same man, but he's not. Alfred sees that, and it isn't until the end that Batman sees who he's become. And I think I said this earlier, and I think you guys have said this, but it's a compelling story that would never happen if the character had been portrayed correctly. If that even exists, a correct version of Batman. It's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But some viewers feel that there is a correct version to portray Batman, and people disagree with portraying Batman as a villain for the movie. And I like that. I think that's cool. I think it's appropriate because this is the sequel to a Superman movie, right? This is his movie, but we have to set up the villain, which just happens to be Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to sorry. No, I'm just going. Then we deconstruct Superman, right? And we're deconstructing, what would that be like if he really existed? And most of that explored through the media, through the world's reaction to him. His every action is politicized. His every move is recorded by the media. And the world isn't sure if they should worship him or hate him. They don't know if they should try to control him or just let him be. And Clark, meanwhile, is just unsure of his place in the world still. He spends most of the movie in doubt of every action he takes. He constantly tries his best, but never seems to win. So if Superman existed, would he be confident and cheerful like the Christopher Reeves, how he normally is? That's what we're used to seeing, is that kind of fatherly mentor figure, hands on his hips, smile on his face, chest puffed out, right? But that's not him in this movie at all. It deconstructs that image of Superman. It would say, no, not right away. If Superman is just starting out 18 months into his career, he would be overwhelmed with the responsibility of his job and the public scrutiny. And so Snyder takes religious and mythological iconography and some superhero comics as well, but he uses that to place Clark in a grander scheme of things. Clark holding the rocket, he said, that's like Atlas holding the world. Clark dragging the boat, that's like Christ dragging the cross. So this imagery is used by the filmmakers not to think of Superman as a comic book character, but as someone who's a part of a larger pantheon of monomythic figures, right? The very Joseph Campbell heroes, figures who, like us, go through an emotional and spiritual journey. But these journeys are externalized by these incredible, fantastic feats. Something that goes back to Man of Steel is, when young people reach a certain age, they go on a journey to find themselves. Everybody does that. I don't care who you are. Everybody in the world goes on a journey to find themselves at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go to college. Some people go to work. Some people, new city, a new house, new home. And Man of Steel, that scariness of the quest, that scariness of trying to find yourself, it's externalized by this cold, massive, frozen alien spaceship. Clark's journey, like, all the other monomythic figures, it's filled with fantasy, but it's emotionally no different from the one that all of us go through. So when Clark discovers himself, when he finally finds out who he is, he leaps over mountains. He's flying through the air. And of course, that's exactly what it feels like when we discover who we are, when we find our place in the world, when we find our people. We are happy. We feel like flying. You feel like you can fly as high as Superman, but then you come back down to the ground, and there's more to the journey, and the cycle repeats. Monsters start coming at you. Zod, Lex Luthor, Doomsday. Superman's fights are all fantastical and crazy, but the Zod fight is all about identity, choosing between two cultures and realizing you're a synthesis of both. His fight or struggle with Lex Luthor, that's all about discrimination. Lex, I can't think of anything more relevant to America. This alien who comes to my planet, he's evil. I have to set out to prove that he's wrong, and he's everything that I hate. How is that not relevant to what we're going through in America today? And his fight with Doomsday is totally reflective of that. He's fighting himself. Doomsday is a distorted mirror of Superman. He visually represents everything that the humans fear about him. And in many ways, Superman is fearful that he'll become that creature, but he's not. So when he kills Doomsday, he's killing that distorted view of himself. and he overcomes his self-doubt by killing Doomsday. He's saying, I am not this, I'm better than this. And you know, it's all metaphorical. So maybe we don't battle aliens and geniuses, but there's battles that we fight every single day in life. Life is a series of monsters that come to take you down. Depression, racism, anxiety, self-doubt, sexism, homophobia, all that stuff, all monsters. And that's what these monsters are metaphorically represent in the Superman movies. And all you want to do is the right thing. But every time you make a mistake, it feels like the world is watching, just like Superman BVS. And maybe you hurt someone on accident. And Superman experiences all these problems that we all go through, but on a massive, massive scale. You know, when the bomb at the Capitol building goes off, we get this haunting image of him standing there in the building burning, crying. Like, that's one of the best shots of the movie, because that's how it feels when we make a mistake. You know, it feels like the world is on fire and you're judged, you're alone, and people are arguing about what you should have done, and people blame you for everything. And this, I mean, like I said earlier, that's the purpose of Superman, is to fight, to struggle, and to inspire. Because, you know, how else could we relate to him? That's what's so genius about the movie. You know, how could he relate to us? I mean, going back to mythology, that's the Jesus story. That's the Christ story. You know, God made flesh. He came to love us. He came to help us. But how can he help you if he doesn't relate to you, or if he's never struggled? So, you know, you whip Jesus, you beat him, nail him to wood, this most spiritually pure thing. You nail him to a cross, stabbed in the belly with a spear and all that. But he gave himself to the world so that when you were at your lowest low, when you're barely hanging on, you know, he's right there beside you. He's bleeding beside you. He's with you. He's felt your pain, and he knows what you're going through. And that's Superman of BVS. In BVS, I mean, it's all Good Friday. That would almost be a better movie. You know, that's like what this movie is Good Friday. He's tested. He cares so deeply about the human race. He hears cries, he sees suffering, and he knows he can't save everyone. And that's why that image of him in the Capitol building is so great, you know. And even when he's blamed for every problem, even when he makes mistakes, it doesn't stop him from trying. So over the course of the film, he's yelled at, he's shot at, he's beaten, stabbed, his loved ones are almost killed, but he still sacrifices himself to humanity because he trusts the humans to carry on his legacy, and that legacy being that he needs our help to make the world a better place. You know, alien invasions, nuclear bombs, plane crashes, all that's Kal-El's realm. What he wants is, you know, when he's gone, give blankets to the cold, feed the hungry, help one another. That's, you know, that's why he is the greatest superhero, because he needs our help as much as we need his. And together we can fight the impossible with Superman. And while Superman is fighting the impossible in BVS, Batman's fighting death. Begins and ends with a funeral. That's why it's bookended with the death of Wayne and the death of Superman. It's important we see that Wayne murders at the beginning to see how his journey started. It's important to see that we see this child, you know, orphan Bruce, filled with fear and pain. He wanted to do everything in his power to make sure nothing like that ever happened to anyone. He wants to make sure that as long as he lives, as long as there's breath in his lungs, he will not stop fighting until those who inflict pain upon others are stopped. And that's totally like humanist and inspiring, because that's how we feel at times. You know, we want to make sense out of tragedy and loss in our lives. We want to turn something terrible into something that matters. You know, Batman talks about legacy in BVS. He talks about his mission, his journey. And that's why the character has captivated people for years, because he turns that tragedy into a mission. And we need that strength to carry us on as well. You know, the dangerous part of that is Batman loses his way. And we see him at his lowest low, but he's still dedicated to making some sort of good come out of his parents' deaths, the deaths of the people in Metropolis, the death of Robin. But he's turned into the man with the gun. And that's why in Batman v Superman, the fight, it's ugly. It's not Civil War. It's not this beautifully choreographed thing. We're not supposed to cheer when Batman, you know, punches Superman. We're like, no, Bruce, stop. You shouldn't do this. You know, and everything's just this big, epic kind of man versus God, man versus nature, all this scary, ugly thing. And that's why after Batman's redemption, you know, it's so much more effective after seeing him at his lowest. We've seen him do terrible things. And that's the message of the movie, is that no one's ever really gone. There's still good in everybody. So when Batman comes back to the light, when the heroes aren't fighting each other, but they're fighting Doomsday, that's when the action becomes beautiful again. That's when the action becomes comic book iconographic, and we're supposed to enjoy seeing him take down the warehouse of people. We're supposed to enjoy them taking down Doomsday, and that's when that's what the movie's about by then. It's because hope lifts us up, and we see the hope inspire everyone else. And I'm getting a headache from talking so much, so I know I should stop. But that's why I love Batman v Superman.
You still there, Fred? Yo,
hello.
Fred.
Yeah, what's up?
You still there, bro?
Yeah, I just heard like the best 20 minutes I've ever heard in this in both our channels, basically.
Yeah, my shit is gonna sound like some 7th grade written shit. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have reached the end of the video. We thank you so much once again for tuning in. You just heard Fran and Jordan give perspectives on why their perspective on why they love Batman v Superman and Zack Snyder's films so much. Again, mine is gonna sound like something written by a 7th grader. Also, I wrote this at 1 in the morning. So I do apologize. Jordan just literally killed the shit and resurrected it and killed it again. So I'm gonna try and do my best. Batman v Superman Dawn, and yes, I wrote it down, so don't judge me. Anyway, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice didn't set out to be a typical comic book movie or even just a typical movie. This is one of the many reasons I consider it to be a special film. It continues to be and is a remarkable take on the iconic characters of both Batman and Superman, and boasts an unforgettable debut for Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. The music is perfect throughout the film, and questions like the Superman question are powerful and resonate well even to this day. Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio delivered a movie that I would consider a Shakespearean tragedy with religious elements. To me, it is just that good. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who has portrayed the comedian in Zack Snyder's own movie Watchmen, and Thomas Wayne in Batman v Superman, and Negan on The Walking Dead, held the movie Watchmen as being ahead of its time. I would agree, and I would also add Batman v Superman to that list as well. No superhero movie aside from Man of Steel is as frequently mentioned, debated, and talked about as often as they both are. And to me, this speaks volumes of its impact. Superman is still struggling to find his place on Earth while also struggling to be the protector of Earth. This is relatable to me as well as many others because many of us are still trying to find our way in this troubled world. In spite of the conflicts and backlash, Superman never neglects to do the right thing and sacrifices himself to ensure humanity's safety. His willingness to always do good and being played by Henry Cavill has made the character more popular, and he and Zack Snyder made Superman great again. Ben Affleck's Batman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman are wonderfully portrayed. Ben Affleck Ben Affleck's Batman being morally lost to only later be brought back into the light by Superman's sacrifice is also relatable because after all, we are all only human. We make mistakes to learn and grow from, and we too can be brought back in the light. Marianne Williamson had a quote that contained the words, "It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." I feel the same can be said for Batman in this movie. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is excellent, and Jesse Eisenberg is fantastic as Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg is a cunning, ruthless, and calculating villain, and to me, he does a great job at bringing down the hero. Visually, the movie is hypnotic, and the death of Superman is one of my favorite scenes in the movie and still makes me teary-eyed to this day. That and Batman's warehouse sequence. Knowing that Batman v Superman was only just a piece of what Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio had in store for us, I will always treasure the moments and feels that I constantly get while viewing the movie. There simply isn't a superhero film like Batman v Superman, and quite frankly, till the Snyder Cut releases, there never will be. And yeah, that's all that's all I had to say about Batman v Superman. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we thank you all so much once again for tuning in. You all go follow Jordan Ross on Twitter. Follow Fran on YouTube and Twitter as well. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye bye.
Adios.